everyone. Thank you for tuning into the JPIS fundraising livestream. This is a quick reminder for you to click the link in our description box below and donate to our COVID-19 crowdfunding campaign in association with Give India, Uplist, and Ujala Foundation. Moving on, today we're joined by Mr. Rai, head squash coach at Bates College and former student athlete at Trinity College. So, thank you so much for being here. We are truly honored to have you here with us today.
I'm gonna say it's my honor. Um, you know, um, for me, as I refer to myself, or I would like to think that I'm a humanitarian at heart. So as soon as you ask me to be a part of this fundraising initiative, it's almost impossible for me to say no because to whatever I can do to help, I've been very lucky and privileged to be in the position that I currently am. And I think it's very important for anybody, that has this type of platform, if they're able to help. It's, in my opinion, it's almost an obligation to help and do whatever we can to make the world a better place. And in this specific incident, things in India are not going so well. I mean, things right across the world aren't great, but I think things in India are at the forefront. So whatever I can do to help, hopefully this conversation, does help a little bit. Otherwise, I'd be more than happy to, do as much as I can to support your school council and this entire fundraising project, to not only help your school, but to help, as many people in India that are currently suffering a lot, as sad as that is. But I think what you all are currently busy with is remarkable. I wish there were more people out there like yourselves that that could take this type of project and try to do as much positivity and as much try to help as much as possible. So you are all doing a fantastic job. Keep trying, keep working. The world, like I said, the world needs more people like you.
Thank you so much, sir. We're so glad that you're here with us to help us make a difference. So, being a sports person, you must have a grueling training schedule. What does a typical day or week look like for a player during the season?
So during a season, it's I'm not sure if you're much aware or what the college kind of routine and environment is like in India, but in the US, it's extremely busy, especially at a college like Bates College. And if you're looking at some of the Ivy League schools, Princeton, Harvard, Yale, Brown, Dartmouth, all of those, Ivy League schools, um, you know, your every single day life is chaotic, because you need to take care of your academics, because academics has to come first. We're all student athletes, and the word student comes first, right? But to answer your question, as a student athlete, as a squash player on my team, the typical day pretty much revolves around trying to get players in the morning very early for either a training session on court or a strength and conditioning session in the athletics center, followed by either one or two classes. Then students would go to lunch, which is probably the highlight of every student at Bates, because Bates also has one of the best kind of lunch and dinner areas in the entire country, apparently. So student athletes love to spend hours and hours just hanging out, eating as much food as possible. Hopefully everything is healthy. Yeah, so lunch is a big deal at Bates, and I think at a lot of other US colleges, lunch is probably the one part of the day where you're able to spend, like I said, an hour or two with your friends, with people that are on your sports team, catch up, share different, stories about what they're going through during the day, whether it's getting ready for an exam, complaining about an exam, complaining about how hard practice was, but all sharing pretty much the same thing. So lunch at Bates, and kind of like I said, at a lot of other colleges, is a great way for a lot of student athletes to kind of vent and kind of share their own common challenges, which I think is a vitally important thing as a student athlete at any college. Is life on campus is very difficult. You need to be able to, especially if you are a student athlete, you need to balance out your academics, your athletics, and your social life. And finding the amount of time during a day to balance all three of those things out, to be as balanced of a human being as possible, which is obviously always the goal, is extremely difficult. Yes. Sorry, to get back to your original question, like I said, I warned Uditi that I'm gonna ramble on a little bit with certain, questions, because there's so much that we can cover. There's so much that we can talk about, and especially educate non-Americans about the college process. And I think your initial question was a very important one. So to go back to your question, usually after lunch, students will go back to either one or two classes, and then right after all classes end, say at 4:30 p.m., then we have another practice session. Students will go back and have supper, and then after that they will go back to their rooms, get some homework done, sleep, wake up, and repeat.
Wow, sure. That certainly is a very grueling training schedule, as you said. I personally cannot imagine balancing such an extraordinary sports ability along with being excelling in the academic nature of the college. And that certainly just thinking about it just gives my bones some pains, because right now, just sitting at home, all we can do is focus on our academics, and certainly there is no way in which we are physically engaging ourselves into such practices. So that's certainly very inspiring to hear about. So Mao, considering that the training schedule that is followed at Bates College is so kind of it's such a grueling training schedule. How accommodating are the faculty with the players missing their practice? And a question related to that would be, how competitive, according to you, is squash at Bates College?
So to answer your first question, in terms of how faculty handle missing practices, that rarely happens, because the way that the entire athletic department, doesn't matter what sport you play, they specifically have practices once all classes are finished. So normally the class schedule starts around 9:15 a.m. And then there's about an hour 15 blocks in the day for classes, and the last block ends at 4:30. So pretty much all sports, when they are in season, have practices after all classes are finished. So there's never really the type of scenario where players need to ask professors or faculty members to miss classes because they have to get to their specific sports practices. In terms of matches, that's a little bit of a more sensitive topic, because sometimes we'll have to travel to Boston or New York City, which is a couple hours away. So we play against the school in New York City that's about 5 hours away on a Friday. We would need to, some or not all students will have to miss their classes on that Friday. But faculty are lenient at specific moments, right? And we kind of bridge that gap by making sure that all faculty are aware weeks or months in advance that specific players will miss classes on those specific Fridays or Wednesdays or whenever those matches actually occur. So we try our best to inform professors and faculty way ahead of time, so that there's no last minute email asking to miss class. It's planned well in advance so that faculty can either provide the lesson for the day a week in advance, or give the reading material out way ahead of a time, so no students can get behind on specific projects, homework, readings, etc. So faculty definitely help student athletes in that way, but there's obviously the odd situation where athletes are lazy and they forget to inform their professors, and then obviously for good reason that can create some issues, but that is very rare. Because like I said, if my players are not informing their professors ahead of time, they're in trouble. So because without our players, we can't reach our true potential. So it's very important to make sure that we have the best possible lineup when we're playing against a very good school, and making sure that student athletes takes care of all of those little details in order for us to perform at the highest level.
Thank you for your insights, sir. So looking at these athletes in your university at Bates, it's a very demanding course, we know, and I'm sure they put in a lot of hard work, but there are always cases where athletes, they don't end up making it professionally sometimes. So my question to you is, what is the difference between a student athlete who makes it professionally and a student athlete who does not do so?
I'm honestly not quite sure how to answer that question. What I can say is that if you're a college athlete, you are not allowed to be a professional athlete at the same time, right? So if you decide that you want to pursue a professional career in whatever sport you are passionate about, you typically pursue that after you've graduated from college, right? So, but to give you another example, in the world of squash, there are players in the US college system that are currently competing in as many PSA events as they possibly can. And that is allowed, but there are specific rules that that they have to follow. For example, they cannot earn more prize money than their expenses, right? Because as soon as they start earning money from playing professionally, then they're officially a professional athlete. And to play college squash, you cannot be a professional athlete. That is like asking Saurav Ghosal to apply to Bates College and be on the Bates team. That would just not be fair, or just, yeah, that would just not be right. I don't know if you guys all know the best squash player in India. I hope you do. I'm pretty sure that Udupi does, but most of you might not. But I played, I played college squash with a lot of players from India that are currently playing on the PSA circuit, and they are doing phenomenally well. So it's almost as if, if you are interested in pursuing a college degree in the US and you still have that passion and the interest to be a professional athlete post-college, there's a lot of lessons and a lot of things that you can learn during your 4 years at a US college. For example, you grow up. I think that's the bottom line, is a lot of promising and up and coming athletes in many countries. And, there's so many in India that want to pursue a professional career right away. And, obviously cricket might be a very, very select sport, because financially you are very well funded and supported by the Indian Athletic Federation, but other sports might not be. And in a lot of other countries, for example, squash isn't really supported that way. So athletes need to kind of make that decision whether they would like to attempt to pursue a professional career right after high school, and hope that they can be successful enough to make a living out of it. But otherwise, going to college in the US, for example, is a great kind of 4-year bridge for you to try to figure out if that's really what you want. And like I said, it's just a great opportunity for you to grow as a human being, as a person, to learn how to manage your every single daily life, to learn how to construct your everyday life so that you can take care of your academics, you can take care of your strength and conditioning, and then once you've graduated from college, you have all of that experience and that knowledge about how you as a person can manage that. So I do think coming to college in the US or in the UK or in India, for example, as well, there's a lot of things that you can learn from being a student athlete, because like I just said, being a student athlete is extremely difficult. You have a lot going on every single day. Managing your daily life to find that balance is extremely difficult. So you learn a lot about yourself, you grow as a human being, and a lot of times, again, I'm gonna refer to squash players because I am a squash player and a squash coach, but there are, especially in the last 5 or 6 years, there's been a lot of squash players in the US that have gone, they've had very successful college squash careers, and post-college, they're now the number 1 player in the world or the number 5 player in the world, because they were able to figure out how to manage their training schedules and fitting in everything that they need to do to accomplish their ultimate, goals and achievements. So there's a lot of benefit in, struggling, if I can put it that way, during college, because college isn't easy. But sorry. but that cliche saying of what doesn't break you makes you stronger, right? And I think college in the US really really like emphasizes that part about it.
So the way you passionately describe the life of a college athlete at Bates College, that really brings out how even the passion can let, even even though sometimes time management might not be at point, and the only driving force behind a person is their own passion. That's just all they need to just get out of it and finally succeed in whatever venture they want to. And while squash is an individual sport, the squash teams, the group of people, they form an inexplicable bond themselves. So, what does the squash team at Bates College do for fun on their days off, maybe, if they get any?
Well, you kind of just answered my question while asking the question. Um, and that's exactly that. Especially at a sport like squash, at a school like Bates College, where we have players from all over the world, they share the same challenges. They share the same, they're far away from home. They might not have, a lot of pocket money to go and splurge on things. They share the same challenges. So and that almost creates a family like environment, because again, families that are very close, they share the same things, they live in the same house, they share the same challenges, same objectives, same goals. So at Bates, the squash team, we really do refer ourselves as one big family. And therefore, if we have some days off, they spend time with each other, whether that's going to a beach nearby, or going fishing at a lake nearby, or just playing some FIFA, playing FIFA, Xbox, whatever. Young student athletes love to actually do on their 3 days, because like I said, our training schedule is not a very easy one. I have great ambition and excitement about the future at Bates Squash, and a lot of that has got to do with incorporating a culture that believes in work ethic. You can recruit players that are athletic. You can recruit players that have potential and that have a lot of skill and natural ability. But you can't really teach, well, you can teach work ethic, right? And I think that's the biggest challenge, is to recruit players who possess that attribute, those factors, that they are passionate, they want to work hard, they do have that work ethic in their personalities. And if you combine that with recruits that are athletic and that have the skill on a squash court, or on a soccer field, or on a cricket field, that's all you can really ask for. And once you found those recruits, then work ethic and making sure that players are buying into a certain team culture, that this is how it's going to be, then you're setting yourself up individually and as a team to be as successful as possible.
That's amazing, sir, to people all coming from all over the world, getting to know them and creating a bond as close as being family. That is something, I would like to experience myself also. I would like to experience a student athlete's life at a college. So me as an international student, right now I'm in high school. So what should I focus on? Like what sort of merit or evidence can I procure to show the university that select me as a student athlete? What should I focus on?
That's a difficult question to answer because every institution, every college works in a very different way, right? There's obviously some colleges and some universities that kind of look at the same things. But if I can give you a general answer is if you can take care of your academics, if you can show that you can flourish in the US education system, that's what pretty much every admissions office at any secondary no at every tertiary institution in the US can see that you can handle the US education system. That's what they're really looking at. If you are a student athlete, then you need to be able to convince that whatever coach that you're actually in contact with, that kind of like I said before, that you need to be able to prove that you're a great athlete, that you have a strong work ethic. Those types of factors from a coach's perspective is very important, but regardless of what the coach thinks about your ability, the admissions office at every institution wants to see your school grades as high as possible. The other factor that a lot of admissions offices look at, and especially at Bates, is what kind of high school you go to, which might not be in your control, but what you can control is what kind of classes you take, right? So if you're junior year or your senior year or your grade 11, grade 12, not sure, what you call those years in India. But if you can make sure that you're taking the most advanced courses possible, that's also something that can help. Because like I said earlier, I had a meeting with Uditi on Wednesday, where I kind of made sure that she was aware that at most, if not all colleges, the admissions offices look at every little detail possible. So, for example, if you take the easiest classes available at your high school, that could count against you. If you take the hardest, the most advanced courses in your high school, and admission sees that you're able to handle the most advanced courses at your high school, that will definitely help your chances of getting accepted at any college. I hope I properly answered your question there.
So something I was looking for myself, like, is there a difference between, say, an international student? Does an international student need to do something different? Or is it really the same for an American student and an international student?
It's pretty much the same. Yeah, that's a good question. I think the only challenge for international students is with specific college admissions offices, right? So some colleges just they kind of they're not that interested in international student athletes. They're more interested in applicants that are, that show phenomenal grades. And if you're taking the SAT test, that you're scoring as high as possible, that shows that you are smarter and your scores are greater than American students who apply. Because every college or any university in the US, they want a college campus to be as multilingual, and people coming from all different backgrounds and cultures and races and religions. Those are things that colleges want to incorporate. We are currently, trying to get as much, people from different backgrounds, etc., to apply at Bates, and that's something that'll never change.
So thank you so much for answering that. So before we move on to our next question, I would like to introduce you to two more people from our team. That is Chris Sharma. He's a cricketer, as you mentioned. And that is Manan Dhanuka. He's a football player.
Fantastic. How are you guys doing?
We're doing good. By any chance, are you following the IPL?
Unfortunately not, but I spoke to my father yesterday, who did inform me that Mr. AB de Villiers is leading the runs in the IPL, which I was very happy to hear. So proudly South African. And I mean, I'm sure you would agree that AB is one of the best, if not one of the best ever to play the game. So
he will hopefully play for the South African team too in the World Cup, T20 World Cup.
I think every South African hopes that would be possible, but he did retire recently from international cricket. So hopefully he can get back in the arena and show the world that he can still, hit the ball all over the place, which is something that not many other cricketers in the entire world can do. He's a very special player. So, but I'm very happy to have a fellow cricket fan a part of this conversation.
Yeah. So related to that, I had a question. It's cricket centric. So as we know, cricket isn't that prominent in the United States as it is in India or in UK, for example. So will colleges look at my achievements that I've represented the state, I've represented nationals? Will they look at my achievements for cricket with equal emphasis to someone who's excelled in football at the same level, or not?
Unfortunately not. Just because, kind of like you said, there's very little cricket in all colleges in the US. So if you were a footballer or a squash player or, any other sports, I'm trying to think of sports that are played in India that are also played in the US, and there's not many, is there? Especially in the collegiate level. But unfortunately, until cricket becomes a popular sport in the US, it's going to be very difficult because, again, the way that college recruiting works is you send in your application to the admissions office, and the head coach of all the sports teams at any given college, they have to support those players, those potential recruits. And if colleges don't have an official cricket team, then that college cannot support you as a cricket player. Then they can only support you if you have fantastic academic results.
Sir, so I remember back when I was young, the only reason I started playing football was because I loved Fernando Torres, a player in Chelsea at that time, a lot. So I was inspired by him, and then I started playing football. So, sir, how did you get into playing squash? Is there any particular memory?
Oh boy, that's a long story. We might be here for a couple of hours if I have to share the whole story. So I pretty much started playing squash when I don't even really remember. I think I was about 5 years old. Um, I have a squash runs fairly deep into my family. My parents actually had their first official like um they kind of met on a squash court. Squash has been in my family for a long time. My grandfather played squash. My aunt played squash. My cousin is currently top 5 player in South Africa. My brother is a head pro at a squash club in Portland, Oregon, in the US. So yeah, my mom stopped playing squash a couple of years ago. My dad is getting old. I don't know if he's gonna watch this film, so I can say he's old. That's okay. He stopped playing squash because he was getting a lot of injuries. But yeah, so squash runs in my family, and you know, because of that, I'm extremely passionate about the sport, extremely passionate about all sports. I'm a big football fan. I'm a Man United fan. I'm currently, I don't know if you football fans play in the fantasy league or the FPL.
So I do play that.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm not. I don't want to brag, but I kind of want to brag. Is I'm currently in the top 9,000 in the world with my fantasy team. Which doesn't say much about my knowledge. It might kind of represent how obsessed I am at you know football and sports in general. So yeah, I'm just an ultimate sports fanatic. But squash is definitely the number one. Yeah.
So I would say that you must have had Bruno Fernandes as your captain in the most game weeks. That may be the reason.
Actually, Harry Kane got me the
Harry
most
Kane, yes.
points.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've got a problem with Bruno this week. He's had a terrible couple of weeks, so I'm not sure what I'm gonna be doing with Mr. Bruno going forward.
So, I mean, that sounds fun. And like knowing that your family background is all about sports, that's even more interesting. So, moving on to our next question, that is, even I play squash. So, I have these few matches that I really want to tell people about. Like, this was my best match, this was the best moment in my match, and things like that. So, what was your best match when you were playing college squash for Trinity?
Oh, that's wow, that's a lot. That's another long story. But I kind of want to use this like as another opportunity to kind of rephrase your question or what kind of answer you want. And I think part of the reason why I love being a college coach, and which is why I think I'm going to be a college coach for a very long time, is because during my own college career, I experienced every possible thing you can. Um, I I began playing college at Trinity College in 2009. My role models as a young child, when I was probably about 11 years old, they all went to Trinity College. So I wanted to go to Trinity ever since I was about 11 years old. I followed their success and their results ever since then. Um, Trinity College ended up going on a 252 winning match streak. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. Now, I was on the team that won, the 250th match, the 251st match. However, I was also a part of the team that lost that winning streak, and I personally lost my match, and that was heartbreaking. because like I said, it was a dream come true to play for that college. And you know, that same season, it was during my sophomore season, we also had a national championship streak where we didn't lose a national championship for 13 years. And that same year where we lost the 252 match winning streak, we also lost our national championship winning streak. And I was the last player on the team to play. The match score was 4-all, and we needed one more match to continue our national championship winning streak. And I lost. And it was, like I said, absolutely heartbreaking. Probably something that I'll never forget in my entire life. So I experienced, from a personal standpoint, the ultimate lows. However, the next year when I was a senior, we were able to use that heartbreak and turn it into motivation, and we actually regained the national championship that next year. And that was an extremely, so again, something that I'll never forget and cherish for the rest of my life. So, that's probably that specific match. We played against Harvard in the final, and I played. I don't know if any of you know the current world number one. His name is Ali Farag from Egypt. He played at Harvard, and I played against Ali during that match at the finals of nationals. Played against Harvard, and I had to play against this player who was a former world junior champion. Currently, he's world number one. Excuse my language, but I got my ass kicked. But you know what? Looking back on it now, it didn't matter because if you're playing if you're in a team, it's not about you; it's about the team. And luckily, I was, at that stage, I was playing number one. So playing number one, I was almost the sacrificial lamb on that day because I knew that I was playing against a very good player. So losing that match, obviously it wasn't great. I had my family was in the crowd. I'm not sure if I disappointed my family, but playing against such a good player, I hope they weren't that disappointed. But looking back on it, I experienced the lows of the lows, and I experienced the ultimate high of kind of retaining that national championship and bringing it back to the college. So yeah, kind of like I said, I experienced everything. And I think that's what really helps me, sets me up to try to educate and to try to teach my current players to how to manage those moments. You all are, if you're an athlete or a regular human being that's that doesn't play a specific sport, life is gonna be difficult. You're gonna go through lows and highs, but it's what you make of it. It's how you for example, what's going on with everybody in this call. I'm assuming that many of you, if not all of you, have really left your houses in the past year. And I cannot imagine how horrible that must be. But there's always a positive. There's always a way to kind of, like I said earlier, what doesn't break you will make you stronger. And as easy as that is to say, it's obviously a lot harder in reality, especially if there's no real light at the end of the tunnel at the moment. Nobody knows when your lockdown will end. nobody knows when things in the hospitals will improve, and just the entire country of India, will finally come back to a safe place, and people can get all the treatment that they can to survive and to be healthy, and etc., etc. So again, it's very difficult to give you advice sitting on my white privileged first world pedestal at this moment. But I think the entire world is looking out for everybody based in India. I think everybody's trying, doing everything that we can to try to help, help hospitals and help in any way possible, so that, no one likes to see a country suffer, and people in India are suffering. But kind of like I said, there's always a way out. There's always a way to turn negative into a positive.
And I think that's really important, finding the light at the end of the tunnel. I definitely think this will make a great segment on our YouTube live stream, especially about sports in college, which is something I think many of us seniors and juniors are keen to learn about. Before we conclude, I would like to ask a few audience questions. We had put up a poll on our Instagram asking students what they would like to ask you. And here are a few of our most common responses. The first one is, of course, who's your favorite squash player and why?
Who is my favorite squash player and why? I would have to say Egyptian squash player retired a couple of years ago. His name is Amir Shabana. He was, I think he was a 5 or 6 time world champion. Just a very natural player, but I think what makes him one of my favorite squash players ever is just how humble he was. He was just extremely humble on and off the court. He played a beautiful game of squash. He was the type of player that never really argued with referees or had bad behavior or bad body language on court. He was always just a great ambassador for the game of squash. And on top of that, partly, a big reason for his success was because he had that type of personality and behavior on court. So yes, I would have to say Amir Shabana. Secondly, maybe a fellow Indian player, Vikram Malhotra, which hopefully Uditi knows who Vikram is. But just a phenomenal athlete, one of the most skillful players I have witnessed in my life. I had the privilege to be on a team with him for 3 years. I did play him in a couple of challenge matches, which did not go so well. But a very good friend of mine, and someone who I always thought was one of the most skillful players that I've met in my entire life.
So one more question we have from the audience, and so sorry to all the people we couldn't get all the questions. So you might have watched the Netflix documentary Operation Varsity Blues. What is your take on the entire college admissions scandal?
I'm going to be honest, I did not watch that documentary. But I am somewhat aware of the college admissions scandal, and there's not much positive things to say about it. Pretty much every parent and every student applicant needs to get into college on merit, and there's no easy way out. There's no easy way in. There's no cheating the system. If especially with regards to that scandal, money was involved, which pretty much you know, which benefited certain students in the US, where it could have given opportunities to um, underprivileged underprivileged applicants with potential better grades, with a passion to, you know, make a big difference in the world in whatever like industry they went into. So yeah, I it's a that was a horrible documentary and a horrible kind of, you know, big big deal that happened in the US college world. Was just That's just not acceptable. And luckily, the people that were involved, they got punished for it, and hopefully that will result in something like that never happening again. But yeah, it's a yeah, it's just a horrible thing that actually happened, because like I said, it it takes away the opportunities of others, that should be getting into those colleges based on their hard work for multiple years, on the academic front and on the sporting field, sporting courts. Yeah, it was just hopefully it's not something that will replicate itself again, and I'm pretty sure it won't.
So I know I'm a bit late to the poll, but I have one question in mind. Do you have a favorite football player? And if and I would hope the answer is someone except Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo, someone you really like in the football world right now.
Oh wow, that's a tough question. If you actually remove Messi and Ronaldo out of that equation, um, that's difficult. I think for a couple of reasons. One name does come to mind, and Zlatan Ibrahimovic is a fascinating character. He's extremely skillful. Do I like him? You know, when he's off the football field, he can say some very insensitive things because he's a very arrogant, full of confidence type of human being. So you have to take some things that he says with a pinch of salt. But as a footballer in general, yeah, I think he's done some incredible things over the past years, and it doesn't look like that's going to end anytime soon either. Um, yeah, that was a good question. You might have, if you gave me like an extra 5 minutes to really think about all the great football players out there, I might have given you a better answer. But I think Zlatan was the first name that popped into my head. But I'm a Man United supporter, so guys like Bruno Fernandes, who's currently playing some amazing football. And then guys in the past like Ryan Giggs, who was a Man United legend, David Beckham. There's just so many fantastic footballers out there that if you take Ronaldo and Messi out of the equation, it's becomes very difficult. Maybe Kylian Mbappe. I'm not a big fan of Neymar, but yeah.
I actually had a question bugging me in my mind since the time that you were talking about all the time. Basically, when you were talking about how people are just passionate enough that the time itself gets managed, and you talked so much about having the right work ethic. So, may you, based on your observation of college athletes and the way they were managing their academics and athletics, give any tips to us as students who just want to tackle their sports abilities effectively while managing our academics? So is it just bounding oneself, one college student, to the schedule that the university offers, and that college student slowly comes into the habit of that particular schedule, that it just becomes a habit for them, no matter how demanding it is? Or is there any particular technique that they use? like not dependent on the passion, because obviously the passion is a very big driving force for one to actually try to manage their extraordinary sports ability with their academics. But is there anything else specifically that might help students like us to manage our academics along with what we want to achieve aside academics?
That's a great question. I think there's one word that comes to my mind immediately, because you're not always subject to a specific schedule, right? At many schools, so Bates is a liberal arts college, and there are many liberal arts colleges around the US, right? And I've seen that at non-liberal arts colleges, you're in charge of your schedule, right? So every semester you pick your courses, right? Sometimes you have to take specific courses because you are required to for the specific major that you want to pursue. But in general, to give you one word, one piece of advice, is to be proactive, regardless of what your schedule is, regardless of what's going on. For example, at Bates, the professor to student ratio is 3-1. So 3 students per professor. So you at Bates College, you have no excuse. You have all the resources humanly possible available to you. So if you are proactive about your everyday schedule, and if you run into a specific scenario where you cannot submit a paper in time, or you're struggling to balance your athletics and your academics out, be proactive about it. Reach out to your teachers, your professors, your coaches. Explain what's going on. Be as proactive as humanly possible. That not only solves a lot of potential issues and problems, but that also helps you to manage your schedule the best way possible.
And I think on that note, we're going to come to the end of this interview. Thank you so much, sir, for taking out your valuable time and enlightening us with your insight. We are truly honored to gain such important career advice. And I'm sure all of the fellow aspiring athletes watching this will say the same. As for those watching, this is a quick reminder for you to click the link in our description box below and donate to our COVID relief campaign. Thank you so much once again.
That's a pleasure. And again, this has been my honor. Like, as much as I can help now and in the future, just absolutely happy to. And it's been such a privilege and an honor to be invited here and to get this opportunity to help a fantastic cause. And I really hope that you raise as much money as possible, and that money can go straight into helping hospitals and people in India who are struggling. And I also hope that I can use my platform in the US to convey your messages to my friends, my colleagues, to continue helping you as much as possible.